Time to join us this evening. My name is Beth Breeze and I'm a Professor of Philanthropic Studies and I'm the Director of the Centre for Philanthropy here at the University of Kent. And that's where the Master's degree in Philanthropic Studies is housed, along with some other programmes. We teach on a number of different subjects, and some people on the call are doing some other courses with us, so that's especially nice to see the home crowd. My excellent colleague Dr. Ali Body is with us as well. She's the Director of Studies for the Master's degree, and she's going to also help with answering questions and just here to meet you all and to make that connection. So we do hope to get to know you a bit. If you didn't hear me say it already, feel free to use the chat to say where you're calling from. You know, that could be a city, could be a charity, you know, whatever you want to share, but no pressure if you don't want to. I'm going to give a brief introduction and overview, maybe 10 minutes or so, just to sort of talk you through the key things that people tend to want to know, but you will have your own individual questions and concerns and ideas. So then we'll spend most of the time having that sort of Q&A and discussion. If you want to jump in as I'm going along, if anything's not clear, you're very welcome to do that. Probably the best way to do it is pop it in the chat. But you know, I won't be, we're always happy when people join in, so feel free to do that. You can contact us afterwards if there's any question that you want to ask just individually rather than in a group situation, and we'll make sure you've got the email address to do that. So without further ado, let's start and tell you about the Master's degree in Philanthropic Studies. I mean, I think I'll probably sort of backpedal a little bit to myself and the fact that I spent about 10 years working as a fundraiser and a charity manager before coming to the University of Kent to do my PhD in contemporary philanthropy and now be doing the research and teaching. And during that decade or so that I worked in the charity sector, and by the way, all the teaching team have got that same professional experience. I absolutely loved it. There's nothing like doing social change work and making the world a better place. But I often felt a real absence of the kind of support and training and education that my colleagues were getting. If my friends, if they'd gone into, say, government, or if they'd gone into the business sector, you know, you could get an MBA or you could do a degree in politics, or, you know, there's all those kind of courses available. If you were in the non-profit sector and the broader world of philanthropy, whether it's fundraising, running a charity, frontline, volunteer management, grant making, there really wasn't at that stage many courses or support available. So you could take maybe a more strategic approach to your work and to your career development. So that's really where the idea of the Masters came from. It wasn't about looking for the nuts and bolts of the job, you know, whether it was fundraising or whichever job. You know, you can certainly learn about techniques and management and leadership skills from a number of places, but more that bigger canvas of asking and giving and philanthropy, you know, the historical context, the big theoretical ideas, you know, the debates about, you know, how philanthropy works, and discussions of donor motivation and all those kind of things, critiques of philanthropy, defenses of philanthropy. That was the kind of thing I was hungry for and couldn't really find. So I did my PhD and came to work at the University of Kent, and that's where I've now since then been doing my research and developing this course. And the cohort starting in September will be the 9th cohort on the MA. So we've had eight cohorts have gone through so far, and the next ones graduate in a couple of weeks' time, which is always a highlight of the year. So what we're trying to do, as it says on the slide, is to meet that need for professional development. If your experience is like mine and you wish that was there, we want you to be the best that you can be at work, but we also know that many people have got a personal motivation to achieve a postgraduate degree, or you know, so it's kind of a personal and a career goal at the same time. We do our absolute best to make it flexible and to make it affordable, and we deliver it in a way that fits around your commitments at work and at home. We know it's highly unlikely to be possible for you to stop work for a year to study, however much you might want to study. So most of our students are in full-time jobs and they're fitting in the programme around their other commitments. So it's taught by distance learning. What we're doing just now would be fairly typical of how a live session might be. You study online from home or perhaps at work during your lunch break, or some people study on their commute. You study at a time that suits you. The lectures are all pre-recorded. The readings are all available for you to read when you want to. So you don't have to be anywhere at any set time, either in person or online. All of the lectures and materials are accessed through our online learning platform, and I'll show you what that looks like later, but it's fairly easy to get the hang of. We've got an academic and a practitioner pathway for applicants. The standard requirement for anyone coming to the University of Kent to do a postgraduate degree is that first degree and you know, academic references, but we are fully aware
You need a headset?
in our sector might have followed a different career path, so perhaps went straight into work at the age of 18, have had a really, you know, interesting and successful professional career, but don't have that first degree. So if you're in that position, don't worry, we do welcome you, and we'll tell you a bit more about how we have a slightly different application process in terms of showing some pieces of writing and so on. But talk to us about that if that's you. So I'm going to show you what the online environment looks like in a moment, but I wanted to just next introduce a team to you, because I'm here, Ali's here, but we are not the only people. This is the team. You can see myself and Ali on there. Our colleagues Emily Lau, Claire Routley and Carl Wilding are all Philanthropic Studies lecturers. They're all active researchers with their own specialisms, and you'll meet and be taught by all of us at different points during the year. We also have wonderful input from Rodri Davis and Emma Beeston. Rodri, some of you might know, has a great website, an email newsletter called Why Philanthropy Matters. And he has a podcast called Philanthropisms, and he's written the book that's in the middle of the slide there, What's Philanthropy For? And Emma Beeston is a philanthropy advisor, and she and I wrote the book called Advising Philanthropists. And all the team have written the other books that are shown on there as well. So we very much bring our research and our the work we're doing in that regard into the classes. We also are very lucky to have lots of associates, honorary fellows and guest lecturers, so to ensure that our students are taught by, you know, the people who know the most about those subjects. So it's a good team, and I think you'll enjoy getting to know all of us. All right, so what do we actually teach? What does the course cover? I'm going to give you an overview of the first year and the second year. So this is for people doing the full master's degree. As I say, it's taught over 2 years. So we begin in September. The first date is 23rd of September with a module called Fundamentals of Philanthropy. And as the name suggests, we're trying to show you all the basic things you might need to know. So the key conceptual approaches, the contested definitions. You know, what is philanthropy? It's not a straightforward word. It has lots of connotations. How has that definition and practice evolved over time? We also, during this first autumn module, try to ease you back into study. Some people are coming straight from a first degree, but for a number of people, they've maybe not studied for a while. So we're trying to make sure in that first term that everybody comes back to feeling quite comfortable, you know, using the library, taking notes and so on. So lots of support in that first term. In the spring term, which is January to April, we focus on the art and science of fundraising. So what we do there is we explore the nature of fundraising. How does asking interact with giving? Because the research shows you don't get much giving without some asking, but how does that all work? What is the nature of that interaction, and how can we improve it? So we study the knowledge, the techniques, and also even the personal attributes of successful fundraisers, working in every channel, whether it's community events, digital legacies, major donors and so on. And that's when we would be bringing in specialists who work in those areas. And then in the summer term, which is where we are now on campus, so our first years are in summer term, we'll be studying global philanthropy next year in the summer term. And that's an in-depth look at philanthropy around the world. We want to really unpick and explore the diversity of the cultural, social and political contexts that influence the understanding and the practice of philanthropy. It is not the same everywhere in the world. And one of the great things, you may have picked that up already, just if you're seeing where everybody's calling in from, is that we have the reality of that diversity within each of our cohorts. So we love hearing from our students about what's going on in Uganda and Finland and Australia and so on. That's a real benefit to us as well as to the students. Okay, so that's year one. Year two, what happens next? So in the autumn term of year two, we look at advising donors. That's a course really looking at these intermediaries that stand between donors and the causes they support, which are often not that well known about. How do they support philanthropists, help them come up with philanthropic strategies to put their intentions into practice? How do they monitor and choose charities and so on? What's going on? What are the debates around that in terms of, does it improve philanthropy, or is it just an extra layer of friction that causes problems perhaps as well? So we look at all of that in year two. Then the last two modules are quite linked. So in the spring, we take you through the basics of research design. For those people who are going to do a dissertation, we want you to feel comfortable knowing what a quantitative method is, a qualitative method is, how you know what good knowledge is, what's a robust sample and so on. It's all very much illustrated with philanthropic examples, but it's your standard kind of research methods course. And if you've done that before, it might be a nice refresher. And if you haven't, it'll be really helpful for the dissertation, which is what takes the rest of the course in the summer. You get assigned one of us to work with you to be your supervisor. You choose the topic. It can be something that you've already right now are thinking, I really want to know more about this. It could be something that develops an interest that develops while you're studying with us. It might be something that your workplace would like some research done on, perhaps because they're paying your fees or are supporting you with time off, or it could be something that you're interested in yourself. So that's what the course is, and it's a 12,000 word dissertation, and you'll be submitting it in the 31st of August 2026. So there it is as a deadline for you, and hopefully graduating the November after that. That's the whole programme. Some people want to sign up for a smaller programme first, which we completely understand. The postgraduate certificate is any 3 of those modules, and the postgraduate diploma is all 5 taught modules, but not the dissertation. You can sign up for them, and what tends to happen is people really enjoy it and then upgrade to do the diploma or the full MA, but not everyone does, so I'm perfectly happy doing just the certificate. You can also dip in and just do one module as a tester, and after that you then need to make a decision to join the programme or not. So any questions on that we can take afterwards, but I hope that gives you a good idea of what the programme involves. Here is what the online learning environment looks like. This is the first page of the first module. So task 1, week 1, and it's me giving a lecture on defining philanthropy. So this is what the page would look like. You press play, you watch me speaking for about 25 minutes, captioned, you can take notes, rewind, and take your time with it. Then we embed the links to the readings that we want you to do, and we send you a copy of the book, so you can do it in hard copy as well, but it's all online as well. We provide the slides, we provide the script, and there's also a space for you to have a debate and discussion, an online forum with your colleagues, and that we join in as well. As I said a moment ago, we know that many of you have not studied for a long time before, could be 10, 20 or even 30 years since you were last studying. So we have lots of support to help you with those basic study skills. Basically, we're very proud of our colleagues who work in that area, and many of our students take advantage of one-on-one sessions about how to write critically, how to speed read, for example, and so on. So we're very happy. We wanted to get your money's worth, so you can use any of those resources at the university. There's lots of in-person contact with tutors and fellow students if you want it. None of that is compulsory. The whole course is delivered online, but we know that people like to meet each other and like to meet us. So it's roughly once a week throughout the year. We'll have maybe a guest speaker, or we might have a session about one of the assignments, or just a drop in any questions. And it's quite nice to meet other people on the course, and really kind of develop a cohort of fellow career professionals who often stay with you as friends for life. So that's quite nice. Right. The other way that people can meet is to come to campus. You are always welcome. If you're doing the course, you are a full member of the university and you can come any day you like. But twice a year, we do something on campus to encourage people to come and meet up. The big one is our annual Understanding Philanthropy Conference. That happens usually the Friday after Easter, with lots of speakers, the current students, the alumni, people on other courses that we teach, our PhD students and so on. The last one was about 8 weeks ago, and here's an idea of some of the speakers we had. We tried to cover philanthropy, which Fozia spoke about, grant making, which Tom Steinberg spoke about, and fundraising, which Mark Phillips did. Different speakers, obviously, each year, and you can get a sense of the kind of things we did. It's quite fun. We have dinner in the evening as well. We also do an event in the autumn, which is more based looking at the history of philanthropy and based in our library. There's no obligation to come. We have students who've been in Australia and New Zealand and we've never met them, perhaps even till graduation day, but plenty of people do quite like to come along and meet people too. So that is the events that we offer. And now I cannot resist showing you our beautiful campus. This is Canterbury, for those of you who don't know it. It's a city about an hour below London. The famous Canterbury Cathedral you can see from our campus, and I can assure you there were plenty of people sitting on that field today because it's such a glorious day. As I say, you're welcome to come anytime you like. The library is the top building on the right. It's not like libraries in the old days when it was all shush and full of books. It's got a cafe, it's got lots of workspaces, it's got lots of computers and so on. So people are very welcome to come. And if we're on campus, we'll happily say hi and meet you for a coffee. I also can't resist showing you some pictures of graduation. We know that most of our students come because they want to learn the material and they want to take time to think about, this area that they're working in or are very committed to in their private life. So we know people have a lot of intrinsic motivation, but the extrinsic motivation is real as well. It's nice to graduate. It's nice to get that certificate. It's nice to walk down the aisle of the beautiful Canterbury Cathedral, and we definitely celebrate well. And this is some pictures from last year. On the left-hand side, that's myself and Emily, who's one of the lecturers, with Stephen Wilson, who is our 100th graduate last year. And next summer we'll have our 200th graduate. So it's a growing body of people who studied this seriously. To give you a bit more of a sense of the kind of people who study, we've got some profiles on our website. There's a much longer profile. We just picked a couple of sentences from each of them, but do have a look at them if you would like to. So Adele works in a university development office, and she has just finished. She'll be graduating soon, and she has actually won full funding to do a PhD in coming back to us to study in September. And she talks about the fact that the breadth of what the course covered was particularly attractive to her. Dave is based in North America, and he says he really found the time zone not an issue, and he was still able to get a lot of support and from colleagues who did that study skills support that I mentioned a moment ago. And Serena is one of our many beloved Italians living at the moment in London. She's currently in the second year, completing her dissertation. And like many of our students, she values the people that she's met, as well as the knowledge and the insights that she's gained. So coming to the last couple of slides now. So if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or to raise your hand if you like. But just wanted to share with you that if you're not sure yet if this is for you, that's completely fine. We have created what we call MA in a day, because I like a bit of rhyming. It's hosted on our website. That's the link there. And we just tried to give you a sample lecture, sample resources, just to give you a bit of a sense of what the course would cover. So you can dip into that and have a look and see whether you think this might suit you. We can also help you think through whether this is right for you by having a one-on-one chat with us. So Ali, who's on the call just now, that's her email address. You can talk to her anytime. Some people find it really helpful to chat to someone who's a fellow current student or alumni. It can be especially nice if they share something in common with you, like they're from the same part of the world, or they work in a similar cause area or a job role. Can you do it if you're a CEO? Yes, we do have CEOs, but it might be nice to chat to one and hear about their experiences. Perhaps you've got a new baby or elderly parents or other things going on in your life, and you want to talk to somebody who's similarly juggling that kind of thing. So we'll do our best to match you up with somebody who can give you those insights if you'd find that useful. A few people do, and we're always happy to help with that. If, however, after tonight you're ready to apply, the apply button is on our website. We would say to you, just start your application and don't worry too much about what it asks for. It will ask you for, I think it's 2 academic references. And if you've been out of university for a while, you probably don't have 2, professors who taught you however long ago. Don't worry, we do accept practitioner-based references, and our admissions colleagues will get back to you if it's not a suitable person you've nominated or if they want to get somebody else. So the most important thing is to get the application started and not worry too much, and they'll get back to you if they need anything more from you. It's all done by humans, not computers. All right, that was all the things I wanted to say. I hope haven't sort of overwhelmed you with information, but hopefully also it gets us off to a good start for chatting. I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other if you've got your camera on. That's always nice, but no pressure if you don't want to. And yeah, hope that gave you a good flavour of what we do. And please feel free to ask any questions that you've got.
Hi, it's Alison here. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. Just to let you know, I was actually recommended to do the course by an ex-colleague of mine who has completed the course, and she found it incredibly interesting. What I would find, I actually work full time. And so for me, it's to try and get a sense of the time commitment in order to do the course. Obviously a mother of 2 kids. So trying to factor that in terms of how realistic that is from you. And also if you are able to share some experiences from colleagues, individuals who have taken the course in terms of whether it's taken them in a different direction, how they've used it in order to galvanize the start of a new area in terms of philanthropy, because I know that's something that's sitting with me currently. So I'd be quite interested to hear if you have some of that you can share with us based on them actually completing the course. I'll leave it
Thanks,
there.
Alison. Two excellent questions, and my guess is that other people have both those questions as well. So thank you for being the one to articulate them. Ali, I'll say a little bit, but I'll come to you because I know you've plenty to say on that as well. I'll take the career development one actually, because I think you're right. People who reach that point in their life when they want to do something like this maybe are a bit of a junction, thinking, you know, is this what else is there in this world that we're in? I would say there's lots of different steps people take. One of them, because I normally teach the advising donors module, and that's not a career that's hugely developed at the moment really in any country, even in the US, but that's where it's most developed. So we do find people who say that's what they're thinking of moving into that world, and whether that's within a family office, whether it's within a boutique philanthropy advising consultancy, whether it's as a freelancer, which Emma is, the person who co-teaches that course, in a bank, you know, there are many different settings. So that's one quite interesting step. And having studied it for a term and really read all the literature and met a lot of philanthropy advisors, that would be the examples of the weekly sessions. We have advisors from all over the world as well. So that would be one example of a career change. The other one I think is people who want to just move a bit faster. I think, you know, our students tend to be pretty talented, but getting the MA seems to help them move up the ladder or move where they want to go that bit faster. Many of them say that when they go for job interviews, when they say, I've got a master's degree in philanthropic studies, it's a bit of a, you know, wow, it stops people in their tracks. They maybe don't know it exists. So it's quite a good conversational point in an interview, and seems to go down well with people who are appointing maybe quite a senior leader in a charity. So that's what I'd say about career development. Ali, anything else to add on that, or to move on to the time issue?
Certainly. So I'll add something very quickly to the career development. A couple of years ago, we actually surveyed all of our students and our alumni students to ask that very question. And over 40% of them said that actually the MA had helped them move into a different direction within kind of the philanthropic ecosystem. And over 90% of them said that it helped them move forwards in their career, either having a promotion or thinking differently in terms of where they were going. So just to put some figures to best ones for examples as well. In terms of the hours, in some ways, this is a little bit like how long is a piece of string question, because we do absolutely understand that majority of our students are in the exact same position. They're working full time. There's lots going on in very busy lives. So we would normally say that you need around 4 hours to access the core content each week. So that's listen to the lectures and go through the readings. But obviously then there is some additional time that is needed if you are for preparing for essays and the assignments that sit around that as well. So I think that you're probably averaging kind of 6 hours at that point. However, what we do, we have our core reading and podcasts and various things to access. And then if it's a topic that you're really interested in, we make sure that we have lots of optional extra reading so you can dive deep that week. And so what we find some students doing is saying, actually, this week I'm looking at the core, but the week after I'm really interested in what's going on here. So I'm going to dive deeper and actually spend some time really exploring this. But to make that process as easy as possible for people, all of the links, you literally have to click on a link and that reading will come up for you, and those things will be accessible for you. But it is set up in a way that you can listen to a lecture on the train to work maybe, or maybe spend half an hour in the evening doing that reading. So it is very much in bite-sized pieces as well, because we really do understand that very few people have that period of time to sort of do that all at once. Though some of our students do say, actually, a day a week, this is what I'm doing, and then the rest I'm focusing elsewhere in my life.
Thanks, Ali. And just to say, by the way, I was one of those people who did my MA on a train. Mine was at the LSE. Obviously, it didn't exist at Kent at the time. But I always associate sitting on a train with having my pen out and trying to work on an assignment or something. So it's not a bad way to use that time if that's what you have to do. Yeah, lunch breaks, mornings, and so on. The other bit, just to add to that, is that even though we organise it in a weekly chunks, there are some weeks when you can't work. You know, you might be on leave, you might be sick, you might have a really big event going on at work. That's fine. You don't actually have to do it in that week. So you just need to next week catch up with at least the core lecture. We always say this is a core task, this is an optional task. We can see when people have been on Moodle. So if you've not been on, Moodle is the name of the online learning platform. We don't know what you're doing when you're on there. We're not, we can't monitor in that way, but we know if you've been on, you've logged on or not. So if we see someone hasn't logged on for over a week, we drop them a line and say, are you doing okay? Any issues? Let us know. And normally they say, I'm really busy at work, I'm going to catch up. And that's absolutely fine. So it's also asynchronous in across the weeks. The assignments obviously have deadlines. There's usually one halfway through the term, one at the end, but you could do it, you could wait a few weeks and do it all in one go. Alison, does that help answer that question?
Yeah, that was really helpful, because then I was going to go in and ask you about, what was the frequency of the assignments, and you just touched upon that there would be one halfway through the term and then one towards the end. So I would assume that there would be 2 assignments per term based on that. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. And just to give you an idea, we try to not do the same thing every time. So there might be a book review, there might be an essay, there might be, in fundraising, we ask you to write shorter chunks about key concepts. So about donor pyramid or donor development cycle or stakeholders, or, so we try not to just have people writing essays constantly, because whilst that's a lovely skill to have, it's not the only skill. So book reviews can be really nice, because it just really means you've engaged properly with a couple of texts, and we always give you a lot of choices, so you can choose, am I going to read about the history of philanthropy, or am I going to read about current debates, or am I going to read some other angle? So we're very keen that you are getting to pursue your own interests, and you can always apply it to the country you live in or you work in or that you're interested in. So we don't expect people to write about the UK philanthropy sector, for example, or you might focus on Scotland, or you might focus on Cornwall, but you set up at the beginning of the essay, I'm going to look at major donors in Finland or whatever, and then that's fine. So we try to make sure it meets your interests and needs.
That's super helpful, thank you. I'll let other colleagues jump in and other participants, and I might come in with other questions. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks, Alison. Beth, there's a couple of questions in the chat. So okay. I can see one from Linda here about the deadline for applications. So we really do, it's really helpful if we can have these applications by the end of July. So whilst there's a little bit of flexibility in that, that just means that we can process it internally at the university to make sure that you're all logged on, you've got your sign-in email, you can access all of our IT systems by the start of the course in September. And Diane has asked here about any financial aid available. Is that something you can respond to, Beth?
Sure. So I'm sorry that there's not. Master's degrees tend to not attract funding like PhDs do. But what we do instead is keep the fees really as low as we can. I mean, I don't know of any other master's degree that costs £8,000. The nearest one we know is kind of 11.5. So I suppose we could call it 11.5 and then give a 3K discount, but we don't want to do that. We just want to be straightforward about what it is. I gather you can pay by the month rather than in one go, and if you're a UK student, you can apply for government student financial aid. So we do our best. We are trying to get scholarships. We had some in the past. We've got conversations ongoing at the moment, because we know that even 8,000 is too much for some people. It's another reason people might do just the PG certificate, which is nearer 3, or the diploma, which is near, I think, 6. So we try to make it accessible. I wish I could wave a magic wand and have loads of scholarships available, but that's what the situation is now. And say, hopefully, if you break it down over 24 months, it's like a very expensive gym membership or something. That's one way of looking at it. But I'm sorry, Diane, if that's not what you were hoping to hear.
And Jadine's asking here about how many people are in a cohort, so I can take that one in terms of, so we normally have around 20-25 people in a cohort. Obviously, as we have some standalone modules, sometimes people are just joining for one module at different points, but overall it tends to be around that 25 figure, which we also really like, because it means that we get to know you really well, you get to know one another really well, and so it's a really nice size and community to be building on.
Yeah, and we try to, you might meet the 25 people in the year above you when you're in first year, and the year below you when you're second year, if there's a speaker that would be of interest to both groups. So there's a bit of cross-year pollination, which is quite nice. And as they get to meet alumni and others at the conferences. But people tend to become quite tight in their year cohort group. So they often set up a WhatsApp group, which we're not part of. So we have terrible FOMO, but it's not for us. It's for you to talk about, whatever you want to. And that can be a really nice source of mutual support, especially when assignments are due, or at the very beginning when people are sort of settling into study. So you don't have to join that, and somebody just takes initiative and sets it up each year, but a lot of people do find that quite helpful. And also people might meet up, if you're going to an event in London or Paris or somewhere where there are others, people can often find their fellow students. So it's not unusual to meet people as you go along. Also, you might never meet them till graduation, and then of course you know them really well because you've chatted like this, but you suddenly realize, like, I'm quite tall and you'd have no idea I was that tall because I'm sitting down, whereas someone else, so that's the only thing that at graduation can be a slight surprise. Other than that, we pretty much all know each other very well. Great. Any other questions, anything in the chat or anything people want to ask?
So Isaac's asked about the total cost. So I can see that our colleague Stefan, who's under the Kent LSSJ, has put the link in there so you can have a look at the fees and funding. So the MA is 8,800. The postgraduate diploma is 5,866, which is payable across 2 instalments. The MA is payable across 2 instalments as well. And the postgraduate certificate is 2,933. This can be, there is some negotiation that can happen with finance in terms of how those instalments are paid, but majority of the time they're paid across 2 instalments. Chris is asking, here's Beth, I'll give this one for you. Do you look much at the impact of charitable giving and measuring that, comparing it across different charities per person, etc.?
Yeah, Chris, great question. So that would come up, for example, in the advising donors course. So if you are working for a philanthropist, not all of them, but most of them would be factoring that in as part of their strategy. So what are the different ways of measuring? You've got from very quantitative measures, like kind of a more of effective altruist type approach, or you might have other approaches around capacity building or advocacy where people are less able, there's less metrics to measure it precisely, but people certainly still have goals and plans in mind. So we certainly look at that. We'd also, as with any topic, it's about the debates. We definitely don't say this is how to do it. We would share the diversity of approaches, and then we would have a good discussion, and between you will have different opinions. You'll start to get to know our opinions because we publish. So I've written a book called In Defense of Philanthropy. It's fairly clear what I think about a lot of things because it's all in there, but it's absolutely fine for people to disagree and have other opinions. So that's what I mean about it's not the how to do it, it's more learning about the space. People still do, I think, pick up quite a lot of techniques. Certainly people say from the fundraising course they've raised money and done things that they had developed a major donor pipeline or something, but that's not what we set out as an explicit goal. I think because you've picked up the knowledge, it becomes maybe more possible to do that. So Chris, I hope that helps. We're always updating the literature, so we have subscriptions to Alliance magazine, Chronicle Philanthropy, those kind of the news sources, and we would bring in speakers who've made interesting new interventions on these areas. So hopefully you just become very versed and knowledgeable about all the debates there. I can see loads of things coming in the chat, so let's have a look.
So I think Sarah's just asked my favourite question.
Well, you answer that one then, Ali.
About what topics previous students have written their dissertations on. I love this question because it really taps in, it really kind of gives that opportunity to talk about how this taps into people's own personal interests and what they want to get from the course. So we have had the most wide and varied dissertations that have ranged from maybe some more traditional discussions in terms of donor motivations for giving or relationships between donors and beneficiaries, right over to kind of those that sit probably more where we wouldn't immediately think, like the representation of philanthropy in musical theatre, for example. And so this year I have a number of students. I have someone looking at philanthropy within Uniform Girl Guide scouting groups. I have a student looking at the role of fundraising within schools and education. I have someone looking at philanthropy advising in New Zealand and kind of how that sits with the whole kind of narrative around decolonisation. I have another student who's looking at the ethics of fundraising and actually how that's being applied and how it's understood through the lens of the media. And we have students who look at this both from quantitative and qualitative research methods. We work quite hard to assign you to a supervisor who has sort of the most knowledge and expertise within both the subject area and the methodology that you're taking, and then they work one-on-one with you to support you throughout that dissertation process. But it really is wide and varied in terms of actually what is it that you're really interested in.
Ali, there's a question from Gemma at the bottom, which makes sense, I think, to follow on from now, because Gemma's asking, could you share a little more about the support the students receive when doing their dissertation?
Brilliant. So in the run up to the dissertation, we run a number of workshops and webinars that are about actually thinking about what topic you want to do with your dissertation and preparing for the dissertation. And then once you get to the dissertation phase, you are assigned a one-on-one supervisor. Now, this supervisor meets with you for at least an hour each month to discuss the progress, or to supporting you through the traditional kind of ways of the dissertation in terms of developing your literature review, thinking about your research design and methodology, and then how you undergo that analysis and findings. And we really are quite flexible to kind of suit what suits that student. So with some of my students, for example, they just want a one-on-one meeting at the end of each month to kind of say, this is where I am I on the right track? And we have a discussion around it. Whereas I have other students who want to meet with me for perhaps shorter periods of time, but every couple of weeks, just to have that reassurance of saying, look, I'm going down this road, or this is what my thinking is at the moment. And we have a discussion around that, and looking at kind of samples of the writing and the development. And also, for example, supporting when most of our students at the moment are at analysis of their findings stage. And so I've just had a couple of wonderful sessions today with dissertation students, actually helping them work through their findings and their interview data and think about, well, how do we undertake thematic analysis? What story are we going to be telling here through our interviews? So as I say, minimum is 1 hour a month, but that works slightly different for each student. And then they'll all be handing in on the 31st of August.
Great. And just to add on that, so my students this year are doing things like next gen donors. We're looking at philanthropy advisors in Italy. We've in the past looked at in memorial fundraising in hospices and how that affects surviving relatives. We've looked at the use of digital in small charities. So it really is whatever people find interesting. And you can tell that we get quite passionate and interested about the topic too. And one other part of that is if someone does really well, if they get a distinction, and we have, high hopes for all of you, and we want to support you to do the best you can. Equally, sometimes people are happy just to pass. We do know you've got to be pragmatic. But when people do a dissertation that's really very good, we don't want it just to sit on a shelf. One of my colleagues says, research not communicated is research not done. So if people want to, after they've finished and graduated, we'll work with them to help turn it into a journal article and submit it. They can either do it by themselves, single authored, or if they want to work with their supervisor, we'll co-author it. They would be the first lead author because it's their work, but we would come on as and Breeze or and Body, and we try and get them submitted. And what's great about that is it then becomes part of the body of knowledge, so other people can read it. Other people can, we might even use it in future years cohorts and set it as a reading. So you're not just a student, you're also contributing to knowledge if that's the kind of thing you want to do and it appeals to you. So good to tell you that. Mikkel, if I've pronounced your name correctly, you've asked about, I think I saw a first question about the kind of people who come. My background is in fundraising, so that's why I've mentioned fundraising quite a lot. Ali's is not in fundraising. She was a commissioner of volunteer sector organisations and working around children's charities. Other people, Carl Wilding, who's one of our lecturers, is more on kind of CEO leadership side. So lots of different kinds of specialisms, and the students are from a range. I would say it's probably more fundraisers than anything else. I think that's probably historical because of me being around from the beginning. So that's the kind of conferences I speak at, the kind of books I write. But we certainly have people doing different jobs in charities. We have grant makers, and we do have some people who are trustees and philanthropists and on that side of things, as well as advisors, of course, as well. So it's really nice having that mix of people because you learn from each other, especially when you've got a fundraiser and a grant maker. They really can see each other's perspective and learn a lot from each other. So yeah, all welcome. Also, some people who are not currently working in roles, by the way. We've got a few people this year who are hoping to move into a philanthropy job. They might be working in something like marketing. They might be working in financial services. So they're welcome as well. I can see a hand up. Who's that? That's Noma. Hi, Noma. Good to see you.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting this event. Actually, you just touched on two of my questions that I have. I know previously somebody asked about the support that students have when it comes to their dissertation. But I also wanted to go back a little bit when you talked about Moodle. What I understand is that you have a platform called Moodle that we go and we do our assignments in. But I was wondering more about the interaction of the course. Will I be interacting with and sharing ideas with some of the other students in the course? That's the first question. And the second one would be, I'm curious to know what your students who have graduated go on to do. Just like you mentioned, some of them probably marketing and so on, but I'm curious to find out more about that.
Sure, thank you for that, Noma. So the interaction, it really is, again, you know, you're all adults, you know how much time you've got, you know what you want to get from the course. There are some people who don't really interact very much, and might be a time zone thing, might be a lifestyle thing, might be, you know, whatever. We don't really see them at events, live sessions. That is fine. There's no obligation. Most people, though, do come along. We hold the live webinars at different times of the day. Sometimes, quite often 1 o'clock, the middle of the day, because that suits a lot of time zones. But we'll do some at 9 a.m, some at 5 p.m, 6 p.m, so that we can everyone can get to at least some of them during the year. The element that is compulsory for everyone is the online forum. So that's a written discussion. So every week you set the topics yourself. We give some suggestions, but let's say, again, thinking of that first week, we might say, you know, is it better to have a really broad definition of philanthropy? Is philanthropy just all helping, all caring, all generosity, all pro-social behaviour? Or should philanthropy be more just the giving of money, and maybe only very large sums of money, and maybe only large sums of money given in a very structured, strategic way? So, you know, and of course, everything in between those two extremes. So that might be, someone might set that as a question. You know, I think, we really encourage you to give your opinions. I think it should be like this. And we obviously not just your kind of the opinion you woke up with, but what you've got after watching the lectures and doing the reading. So because Michael Moody said this, it's made me think actually it should be like that. So it's not long. We just, you know, we're not looking for a mini essay, but we want a couple of sentences where you set out a view, and then someone else will jump in and go, oh, I really agree with Noma, but I also think this other thing. And then someone else says, yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think this other thing because I read something else. So that's the online forum, and we as tutors join in as well and say, especially if people have missed a reading or something new's come out, because even within the 12 weeks of the course, new things happen. So we'll say, this week there's a podcast and you might want to listen to that if you're interested in this. So that's quite fun. You have to contribute at least 3 times a term to pass that element. So 3 times out of 12 weeks. Some people contribute every week, multiple times. Some do the bare minimum. That's your call. Ali, anything else on interaction?
I don't think so. I think you've just covered everything mainly there.
Okay, so on careers, people often are staying in their career but want to move more quickly. Some people actually have found themselves in charities where having a postgraduate qualification is either an explicit or an implicit criteria for a senior leadership role. I've certainly spoken to a few students in that position, or perhaps they've even had funders saying we want a number, you know, a percentage of your senior management to have a postgraduate qualification. So that's the way they've done it. So they're staying put. Others are looking to career change, either into the sector or perhaps to move from fundraising to advising, or grant making into fundraising and so on. So yeah, over the 2 years, people do change job. I'd say, you know, a decent number of people change and hear about jobs and organisations from each other as well. Okay, we're getting near the end. I said we'd try and finish about 10 to, but I don't want to cut anyone short. So, Michael asked a question, but I think you've asked, you've answered that one.
Yeah, I think I've responded to everything else in the chat. I think there's any new ones in there.
Okay. How does the application process, and yeah, so the standalones, I mean, it is a toe dipping thing. We get that it's a big commitment, so people often take one, see how it goes. I'd say almost always they stay. Life can change, by the way, so you might sign up for the whole MA and then drop down to the certificate or the diploma, a bit like with the admissions thing. Don't worry about it too much. Start, see how it goes, and it's usually a fairly simple piece of paper to change, and obviously then the fees are adjusted if you don't do the whole thing. But typically people do more, which is nice for us. Okay. Any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Oh, Rebecca, hi.
Hi, apologies. I can't do my webcam because my signal will go. So apologies. Thank you very much for all the information. It's brilliant. I work for a community foundation who's a grant giver across the UK, and I've been suggested, oh, would you like to do your masters? So jumped on it, absolutely. Board meeting tomorrow to hopefully get sign off, and then I can hopefully sign up at the end of July. But in regards to practicalities on the assessments and each module, how far in advance do we know about the videos, the live online sessions, the assignments. Things can get quite busy, and if something pops up and I'm not free that 2 weeks, then I'll plan it beforehand. I just want to know a little bit more about how far ahead I need to plan.
Yeah, and I think it probably shows that we studied in this way, so we get it. We get that you need to plan ahead. So when you're accepted, or when you're offered a place and you accept it, we send you a welcome pack. I'm probably spoiling the surprise because it's nice if it drops through your letterbox and you didn't know, but I don't mind telling you. We'll send you a copy of the textbook that we use in the first term, which can be just really nice to start reading, you know, in August, July, August, September before we start. And we also send you a list of key dates. So we give you the dates of all of the terms, all of the assignment submissions, when the conferences are and the on-campus events, because some people are flying into them or more likely working a work trip around it. So they're in, you know, London at the same time. So we give you all the key dates ahead of time. You know, we do say TBC because life can get in the way on a conference, but on an assignment, if a date changes, it's always to give you longer, not shorter. So we would never trip you up and say, oh, suddenly you've got to hand it in a week earlier. And we tend not to change those. But let's say we picked a date and it turns out it's a bank holiday Monday, then we'd give you till the Tuesday, not to the previous Friday. So again, taught by humans, not computers. The material online, at the beginning, we open it week by week. So we usually open it the Friday before. The week goes Monday to Sunday. So you've got that first weekend or the later weekend to watch it. And then it stays open. So as I say, if you didn't watch it the first week, you can watch it afterwards. As the course progresses, this term, for example, Ali's opened all of Advising Donors in one go so that people can just take a week off work and work through it and then give themselves a longer summer break before coming back to second year. I'd say that people think they're going to do that and then they tend to stick with the week by week thing because it's a bit, you know, more manageable. But again, you're adults, we want to give you options to make it work for you. Rebecca, was there another question that I've forgotten? I'm sorry, perhaps Ali remembered it.
No, I think you answered everything really. It's just practicalities on all of that sort of side. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I would say, I mean, I usually convene with my colleague Carl fundamentals, and the first assignment is due in a little bit earlier than in the other modules, partly because we think the sooner you have a go at writing an assignment, the sooner you'll realise it's for you or it's not for you. So we do a book review, but in about week 5. There's a range of books. We often talk about which are longer and shorter, which are more easily readable, which are a bit, you know, dense. So you can pick a book that, you know, along those different lines. But we get that in fairly quickly because if the first assignment wasn't till Christmas and then you just thought, actually, I don't want to do this, you've had a whole term's fees, you've put 12 weeks in. So we do that quite early. In the other terms, it tends to be more like an assignment, maybe week 8, 9, 10, and then another one when the course is finished. So it's you know, the last week. So yeah, we do that on purpose, the first one early, just to get over the hump, really, because it can be a bit daunting. And it's only quite short, 1,000 words book review, and it's your opinion on the book. So, you know, hopefully it's fairly doable. All right, the certificate. Oh, Isaac, it's you come and you get a real certificate. You walk. I mean, we're so lucky to have Canterbury Cathedral. You walked. I was there yesterday actually with a guest from New Zealand, and we went to Evensong, and I said, "This is where our students walk up down the aisle here." It's a lovely occasion, and it's a proper piece of parchment that you can put up in a frame. Only for the qualifications, by the way. There's no certificate for a standalone. So you're very welcome to take those. We often, Rebecca, you said with community foundations, they often take this term's course currently this term will be autumn for you guys, on advising donors because it fits very well with the work they're doing. But that's not a qualification. So you get a qualification if you do the certificate, the diploma or the MA, just to be clear. Okay, I think that's everything. I think it's late if you're in the UK, it's tea time. It's time to stop. So Ali, unless you want to offer any final words.
It's just been really lovely to meet you all and to see you all. I've put my email in the chat again, and we will follow up with an email to you all just with my contact details. I'm really happy to meet anyone one-on-one if there's any particular aspects that you want to discuss further and talk about. So please do get in touch with me.
Lovely, and we hope to see you in September. We've been doing these sessions, by the way, since about January. So obviously we've already got a number of applications in. So do let us know if you want to join. But who knows, maybe some people on the screen now that end up becoming your best career buddies in the future, and that'd be nice. Great to see you all. Take care, and you know where we are if you want to talk. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Bye now.